AmeriCorps Connections Podcast, the unofficial hub for AmeriCorps and National Service alum who are still showing up long after their service term is finished. If you've ever served or know someone who has, then you are in the right place. But I want to get serious. We're recording this in May 2025, and we're in some unprecedented times for our country and for the legacy of AmeriCorps. Currently, more than 32,000 AmeriCorps members and over 1,000 programs across all 50 states, Washington, D.C., Guam, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, all of these members all of their positions have been eliminated and they have all been sent home. If you've listened to this podcast, then you know that those AmeriCorps members, they were tutoring students. Some of them were building houses. Some of them were working in environmental education. They were serving our seniors. They were serving our students, our communities, and they were just making things better for America. I could go on, but if you're a fan of the content of this podcast, then we need you to speak up and speak out. Please consider contacting your member of Congress by using the Voices for National Service tool, which is going to be linked in the show notes. AmeriCorps is an investment we want to support. Please reach out to your congressperson and let them know that this evidence-based and evaluated program shows a return of $34 for every federal dollar invested. AmeriCorps is one of the most cost-effective investments our country can make in education, disaster response, in health and environmental stewardship, and so much more. Plus, as you know from listening to this podcast, the AmeriCorps, the alum, we go on from this program, more than 1.3 million of us, we go on to be leaders, teachers, public servants, business owners, doctors, and so much more. If you listen to this content and you found it valuable, please consider using the tool in the show notes, reaching out to your congressperson and letting them know you are either an alum yourself or you are a friend of AmeriCorps and you believe that you want this program to be invested in. Now we're going to move on to our next episode. And again, if you are a fan of this, please subscribe if you're on YouTube and share this podcast far and wide. Even share it with your member of Congress. Let's share the stories of AmeriCorps. So thanks for listening and on to our next episode.
So my service year was back in 2003, which seems like forever ago. I still call on some of the things that I saw or learned or experienced on a daily basis now in my current professional life. I will talk about and recommend AmeriCorps to anybody I've ever met who is roughly between the ages of 18 and 26 now. And so finally, my nephew, who is 22, was about to take me up on it. I was helping him with his application, a few weeks ago, and he was ready to join NCCC later this year. And so I'm sad for me and for those of us who hold AmeriCorps dear. I'm sad for the communities who have lost, the service members, of course. And I'm also sad for the people who have yet to join, who I know, would have made such a big impact on. So yeah, it's definitely sad times.
So I'm so excited to be back with Kate Morton, who was episode 5, folks. It's wild, Kate. Your episode dropped March 4th, 2023. So you were probably one of the episodes that I recorded in actually February before I actually launched the podcast in March, because I wanted I wanted several interviews before I just started launching podcasts. So, and your story is one that really stuck out to me, and for reasons that I hope we go into at some point in this recap and reconnection. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy, busy day and coming back to the AmeriCorps Connections podcast. So, Kate, there's several things that we want to talk about. You are an NCCC alum, so there's that because of where we are recording in mid-April right now in 2025. You're also a scholar of the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program, which I definitely want to go into that. And you're just a really cool person. So I'm super happy to have you back on the podcast. And you've done such great things with your professional life and everything that you've been involved with. So I'm going to kick it over to you, Kate. We can start with your AmeriCorps year or wherever you want to start.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Nikki. I'm obviously a longtime supporter, and I was here 2 years ago. Very different hair, so if you do catch my first one, it's me. Um, yeah, so I mean, I was an early adopter of this podcast and this whole concept because I, like everyone else who's shared their story for the most part, my life has been forever changed by NCCC. I was this really shy person, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And I had gotten this job as a pharmacy technician sort of by accident right out of high school. And then flash forward, I ended up going to AmeriCorps NCCC. I was stationed out in Denver. And just through that whole service year, I think I talked about this on the first time, really got to reset my comfort zone and really just had this mission in me on my way out of AmeriCorps that inspired me to believe in myself and obviously wanting to help people and help patients. And so I left AmeriCorps and went to pharmacy school, even though I had no plans to do that prior to AmeriCorps. And in fact, didn't even think I was going to make it through chemistry, but I did it. And then things just kept unfolding from there for me. And I feel like even though my service year was back in 2003, which seems like forever ago, I still call on some of the things that I saw or learned or experienced on a daily basis now in my current professional life. So yeah, definitely, it was definitely really sad to hear about the kind of dismantling of the program last week. And I've been reflecting about that quite a bit over the last few days. Interestingly, I will talk about and recommend AmeriCorps to anybody I've ever met who is roughly between the ages of 18 and 26 now. And so finally, my nephew, who is 22, was about to take me up on it. I was helping him with his application, a few weeks ago, and he was ready to join NCCC later this year. And so I'm sad for me and for those of us who hold AmeriCorps dear. I'm sad for the communities who have lost, the service members, of course. And I'm also sad for the people who have yet to join, who I know, would have made such a big impact on. So yeah, it's definitely sad times.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine for folks that aren't familiar or as close to NCCC folks do on the ground, but it's more than just blazing trails. It's more than just mucking and gutting houses. It's more than that, right? Like you bond with your team. You learn how to be resilient in the outdoors. You learn how to sleep anywhere, like church basements, and you see things. And I think that's one of the things that really stuck out to me during your story is that there was a particular project that you did, and I believe it was on a reservation. And that's when the connection to not having access to healthcare. And you, as a member, you probably weren't expecting to be impacted by that, but
No, not at all.
I feel like that's kind of where you were like, nope, this, I will not stand for this.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think that was a really impactful project. I mean, all of my projects were impactful in their own way. I was in the central region, which I think has now been remapped. But at the time, my first project was in Detroit, Michigan, and it was freezing cold. And that was right around the time of my 21st birthday. And some of the other Corps members were getting South Padre Island and all of these fancier, warmer places. And so what am I doing? What did I get myself into? But preparing taxes for folks who are really low income. And that was located primarily in a food bank. And man, that was just so eye-opening for me. I mean, I had really no idea what I was about to witness, and just, seeing people and the struggles that they were going through and what poverty looked like extreme poverty and homelessness looked like. That was my first foray into observing all of that. And it's something that really sticks with me to today. That was a really impactful one. And then I think the one that you were referencing was my last one. And we were on a reservation, living in a 1.5 wide trailer with 10 Corps members. And by that time we were besties. So that was
right.
Easy to your point, sleep anywhere. But I think it was really really eye-opening for me because it was a very, very rural location, and we were there to open a Boys and Girls Club, which we did, um, but just witnessing how far folks were living from healthcare and even healthy foods and things like that, that really inspired me to want to work with populations that are sometimes forgotten about or have been historically marginalized. And so that's what I'm continuing to do today. And it's something that I'm really passionate about and obviously really proud of too.
So over the years, the past 2 years that I've known you, I've been following you on LinkedIn because you're over in New Mexico. Is that right? And I'm over here in Maryland. So we have not yet have a real coffee. But you've transitioned through a lot of the work that you have done that you talked about before. So tell us a little bit let's talk about your career. Like you've really made strides and you've gotten recognition for some of the things that you've done in your field. What does that look like and what's driving you to go through these successes, I guess?
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. It's been great to follow you too. Fangirl over here. Yeah, I think the decision to pursue pharmacy school right after AmeriCorps was definitely rooted in this mission to help people and to help them access healthcare and all of those pieces that sort of came to me during AmeriCorps. But the decision to move to New Mexico was a little bit rando. I was 21 at the time. That's how we made decisions back then. You just were like, oh, this seemed like a smart idea. So I had looked into the College of Pharmacy at the University of New Mexico a little bit. I knew they had a pharmacy school, and someone in AmeriCorps had said, oh, you would really love New Mexico. It's a really cool place, lots of great culture. And so I moved here, not really knowing what to expect, totally fell in love with it. And I've moved around a little bit, but this is definitely home for me. What I didn't realize at the time was that New Mexico was one of only 2 states at that time, and now things have shifted a little bit, but New Mexico at the time was one of only 2 states that allowed pharmacists to practice more like independent providers. So we can write prescriptions and we can see our own patients as clinical pharmacists, and that was really different. And had I known that at the time, I definitely would have moved here, but I just came here by accident without that knowledge. And so I think that really opened up a lot of doors for me as a new grad. And so I ended up moving to El Paso just for a couple of years to do a residency. And I worked in a health center right along the US-Mexico border and really solidified what I had learned in my AmeriCorps year, which was that I really am dedicated to helping patients access healthcare in whatever way that needs to look like and whatever shape that takes. And so that sort of started my love for federally qualified health centers, or FQHCs, which are basically health centers that are very integrated. We have a lot of services that we offer to patients, often medical, dental, psychiatry, social services, casework, all the things that we know make up a full complement of services for folks under one roof. And so from there, I moved back to New Mexico. I did a lot of HIV work early in my career. That was definitely something I was super passionate about and still am. So HIV treatment and prevention. And then I moved out to Los Angeles for a couple of years to do some more HIV work in a larger setting. And that was really impactful to me too, in a totally different way, but just living and working in a bigger city and being a small fish in a big pond, again, reset my comfort zone again, just like AmeriCorps. And then I moved back here to New Mexico during COVID, and I was working on a lot of clinical research around COVID vaccines, treatment at the time, testing, and then HIV clinical research as well. And then this opportunity came up for what I'm basically calling at this point my dream job. And so
Wow.
I've transitioned to Albuquerque Healthcare for the homeless, and we are a federally qualified health center. And we supply all those services that I mentioned before for people who are experiencing homelessness. And so I feel like this is a nod back to those early AmeriCorps days where I was in Detroit and really experiencing working with people who were really struggling and really needing lots of support. And then also, I should have mentioned this earlier, but one of my clinical rotations when I was in pharmacy school was at Healthcare for the Homeless. And I had it in the back of my mind. This place is really cool. They offer a lot of great services to folks. They're doing really good work. That I love the mission. And so when this opportunity came up, I jumped on it. And I think the other piece for me, beyond sort of the community health focus and the social services and all those things, was pharmacists in New Mexico at that time were just becoming available or just becoming able to prescribe medications to help people struggling with addiction. And I had always told myself, if that ever becomes possible for a pharmacist, I'm going back into the field and I'm going to do that work. And I made good on my promise. And so I've been there for about a year and a half, and I'm the chief clinical officer. So I oversee all of the medical, psych, dental, and pharmacy services there. And then I also get to see patients, and I love it so much. I mean, it's a perfect blend for me of the leadership and kind of getting things done attitude from AmeriCorps, but also patient to patient, person to person. How can I help you today? Those types of different experiences. And that's been great for me.
That's so good to hear. And I will just say that there are no accidents. We're always right where we're supposed to be. And I love also when we can think back to a time that we were in a place and we were like, this is cool. Okay, I like their mission. And then when an opportunity comes up and you're like, with who is this with? And you're like, whoa, I know this place and this is where I want to serve. I think it's the Baltimore Healthcare for the Homeless. I don't think it's Maryland. When I was with Volunteer Maryland, I was director. We had a partnership with them. And I was so impressed. That, like you said, there's dental, right? And there's mental health and everything that you could possibly need, holistic healing. And of course you're there. Of course you're bringing your NCCC, like, we can make this happen, as well as the experiences that you had up to that point to make that transition. And folks, there really are no accidents. Like, the universe is moving us like by our foreheads. Go over here. So just don't fight it. Let it happen. Just go with it. Ever since over the last couple of weeks, I've been really trying to tune into that messaging from the universe of, am I on the right path? Is this the right way? Am I doing the right thing? I can't unsee numbers like 222, 333, 555, 111 every time I look at the clock. I woke up in the morning and it was 555 and I went like this. Of course. Okay, I'll get out of bed, That's great. I'm so happy that you're in your dream job, and they're lucky to have you. And the patients that get to see you one-on-one are probably even better off for that. Is there anything else that you want to add about moving into this new role? How long have you been there?
I've been there for about a year and a half.
Okay.
I think the only other thing I would add is, just for those listening, to just be open to whatever opportunities are coming to you. There were definitely a few positions before this one that I thought that I wanted to experience. I actually applied for a job with the Public Health AmeriCorps because I was so excited that was coming to fruition. And I thought, I would have joined this when I was, coming of age. So I want to work with them. And I didn't get it. And I remember just being so frustrated and so upset and so feeling dejected. Like, I'm perfect for this job. I would do amazing stuff in that role. And again, to your earlier point, the universe just was pointing me to something different. And I'm much happier, I think, doing this than I would have been elsewhere. And so, and it's a constant reminder to myself too, to just let it happen and be open to what the future has in store. Because I think it's human nature to tend to get really anxious about, I didn't get what I thought I needed or what I thought I wanted and that kind of stuff.
As you were talking, I was just thinking, actually, I think I'm going to ask this question to all of my interviewees now. So you're working it's healthcare for the homeless. So somebody would hear that and they would have a certain sort of image of folks that you serve, or the folks that would go into this type of center and be served. My socks have been knocked off when I have gone to a service project and I've had the biases of who I'm going to be serving lunch to, and who's probably going to come through the line and need food. And every time I do that, I am humbled beyond belief because I'm basically looking at myself across the
Absolutely.
counter serving them food, and it's basically me, right? It
Yep.
can be me. It could be me. So when somebody who is not familiar with a center like healthcare for the homeless, what give us an image of what would we expect, and also if it was something where we wanted to support, what's the best way of supporting that? So first of all, like blow up our biases, right? What goes on at the
Yeah.
homeless
Yeah.
healthcare for the homeless?
It's a really good point. I mean, I think it's just human nature to have our own biases. And so I think constantly checking yourself and reframing for yourself is super important. I think you're right. There's not a whole lot of difference between the patients I'm serving and me. It could happen to any of us. And I think that's pretty humbling. I think one of the more surprising things to me, or just something unexpected when I first started working there, or when I first got to know the organization, is just the sense of community. There, one of my favorite things is to walk through a courtyard and see people hanging out, sitting around, talking, sharing a snack with each other, those types of things. It's pretty vibrant, and I think it just showcases that people feel really welcome in our space, and we've built that space intentionally for the community. I think that was one of the things that I didn't quite expect. But yeah, there are people just like you and I who have fallen on hard times. There's a lack of affordable housing just about everywhere, but including Albuquerque. And I think for folks who are living in extreme poverty, it doesn't take much to tip the scale. And that's really scary. And we can
Yeah.
do something about it too. I think we know that homelessness is solvable. It's not easy, but it's something that we can solve during our lifetime. I think what I would say in terms of support, we definitely take donations, both cash as well as supplies that we give out on outreach when we're out meeting folks in the streets. And I would encourage people to look for in their own communities and see which services are being provided. There's usually either a healthcare for the homeless or a similar organization that receives some sort of grant funding specifically to take care of folks experiencing homelessness. So get involved locally and help however you can, whether that's volunteering, whether that's donating, whatever that looks like. We're always grateful for the help.
Yeah, thank you for painting that picture. And I remember just being blown away about the compassion from the folks that were living there. And then also they were doing this program where they were hiring some of the folks that were getting the services in whatever capacity they could possibly work. But it was a way for them to bring in some sort of paycheck to either help pay for their services or to start to get themselves back up on their feet. And you mentioned like those that are living in poverty and housing being so expensive. But honestly, so many of us are like on the brink of a paycheck or two paychecks or 6 months worth of paychecks. Like I think about all of the people who were put on administrative leave and don't have jobs, right? And that's just that's a lot.
Yeah.
So we could go on and on about that. Go ahead.
I will say one interesting thing that we have. I mean, first of all, I also am on a daily basis just totally impressed by the resilience of folks who I see as patients. Some of the people that I speak to on a daily basis have just been through such traumatic experiences, and even the experience of being homeless is traumatic. But man, are they strong and resilient and get up every morning and come to the clinic or go to their jobs or get out there and try to improve their situation. I think that has been really, really powerful to just witness. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, you mentioned for folks to have an opportunity to make a little bit of money and get back into the community a little bit. One of the things that is one of my favorite programs that we offer is called Art Street. And it's this huge art studio that's a community art space, and anybody can come there. There's no, it's low barrier. So they don't even ask your name. You just come in the door and make art. There's pottery classes, there's sewing classes, there's just art supplies, and folks can make art. And we love this program because it really helps people integrate back into the community. because a lot of our folks have been sort of looked down upon and have felt ostracized from the community. And so it's a way for us to bring multiple people together and develop that community. And then any art that they make and sell through one of our selling events, they get to keep the funding for. And so we have a lot of really incredible artists who come and make art as a way of healing, and they're able to sell their work and keep the money. So that's one of the ways that we've been able to incorporate some of those pieces that I think are super important for folks.
That's so beautiful. I feel like right now, being connected to that essence of yourself is so important. And if you have been overlooked by society or pushed to the side, getting back to that essence, I think when you're working with your hands or you're working with your imagination, you start to flow into that art and you bring back your essence and your purpose with a small p, right? And we all have small p purposes because it shifts and changes.
Sure.
And at one moment, somebody's purpose might just be sitting there, putting their hands in clay, reconnecting to the feeling of being free to create something.
Yeah, absolutely. Super powerful.
And can we purchase any of this art online?
Not online, unfortunately. I know. I have some in my office and in my house, but yeah, we don't have the online gallery up and running yet.
No Etsy?
No Etsy. I know.
Thank you for sharing that, especially that aspect of it. So that's what you're up to now. Anything else that you want to point out?
Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay, let's. So one of the reasons we connected is you were so kind to reach out to me because you're in the Presidential Leadership Scholars program. And I love this. You were like, Nicki, you should do this. And I was like, what? It's way over my head. But if somebody suggests I can do it, then I better buck up and figure out how to do it. So tell us a little bit about the program. How did you find out about it? And then we'll just figure out how that fits into your story.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think you should do it. I found out about it. I was going to say by accident, but we've already talked about on this podcast that there's no accident. So I'm not going to say that. But a very distant connection who I met one time at a conference and just followed on LinkedIn. And he was a participant a couple of years back. And so I thought I sort of kept it on my radar, and the timing wasn't quite right until this year. But so the program is actually really cool. It's a program that's run by 4 of the presidential libraries or presidential centers. They Bush 41, Bush 43, Clinton, and LBJ. And so all of their foundations have come together to fund this program. And the whole purpose of this program is to develop leaders to be able to work across the aisle, regardless of political party affiliation, and get things done. And so when I found out about it, I thought, this is perfect. I love this. This is great. It'll challenge me to look beyond party and some of the issues that I think people are so commonly against or opposed and all these pieces. And so I did it. I threw my name in the ring and applied, and I got in. And so I started in January. It's a 6-month program, and there are about 60 scholars that are accepted every year. And there's so many things about it that kind of remind me of AmeriCorps in a way. It's like adult AmeriCorps. So we travel to meet up with each other with the rest of our cohort once a month, and most of those meetups take place at one of the presidential libraries or centers. And we hear from different speakers who are super inspiring from all different diverse political backgrounds and just backgrounds in general. And then we have a service project that we're working on the side in parallel as we're progressing through this program. And it's really been amazing. The people that I've met here are just super inspiring. They're just a bunch of badasses doing really cool stuff in their own communities. And so that part alone has been incredible. But the speakers and some of the political leaders that we've been able to learn from and hear from have just been really impactful to me. I think especially in this current climate where there's just so much divisiveness and so much arguing and fighting and disagreement, and folks are so opposed to working with one another. They just feel like, oh, I don't want to talk to you, that kind of thing. And I think there's something to be said for protecting yourself and making sure that you're taking time if you're really upset and you need to just take a moment. But I think there's also a lot to be said for, okay, let's put aside our differences. Let's really try and focus on our shared values and let's get the work done. Because I think for most things, you can get to a common value somewhere. And then that sort of can help you springboard off and come up with a solution. So I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying that it's worth it. And I think that's what we need to do, especially right now.
Yeah, I have questions about how things are going, but I wanted to just real quick clarify. You had mentioned that you're working on a service project. Do you do that individually, or are you working on it as a group?
It's individual. So that's part of the application. You have to have a project a leadership project that you're working on. And it could be anything. It could be very small and very local, really focusing on your own community. It could be something that's more of a statewide thing, could be nationwide. We have some folks doing work that really focuses on other countries. It just depends on whatever's important to you, whatever you're working on. My project is around substance use disorder addiction here in New Mexico. And I really am hoping to be able to train a lot more pharmacists to be able to do this work so that we can expand access to treatment, because there is treatment. Treatment does exist for opioid use disorder. And so really wanting to try and get more access out to the community. So that's really where my project lies. But other people are doing all kinds of interesting things, starting their own nonprofit. There's a few people who are in the medical sort of healthcare space, but there are a bunch of people from all other different backgrounds and careers. And so that's been interesting to me too, because I think we get into our bubble, we're on our daily path, and then we end up just hanging out with people that are like ourselves. And so it's really cool to meet a group of people who have similar interests, but are across so many different spectrums.
We were talking about this before we started. I did Leadership Maryland last year. Oh my gosh. Yeah, last year, 2024, class 2024. And we had a lot to say with each other. There's diversity in political views and there was diversity in industry. And it was really interesting because it was about equal of nonprofits and business entrepreneurs or business owners. And some of the business owners were like, I had no idea that nonprofits did all this work. And it was wild. I was like, oh my God, because to your point, I've lived in the nonprofit and service sphere ever since I started working, which was basically my AmeriCorps year. And I understand the corporate world and stuff, but I've never worked in it before. It was really cool to have these different perspectives from different industries. I was always Miss Pollyanna. So what's your purpose? And are you bringing service into this? And do you know about AmeriCorps? And everybody's like, stop with AmeriCorps, like, no, it's my vibe. So with these folks, okay, so y'all applied probably in 2024.
Yeah, over the summer.
Without knowing the outcomes of the election. So now there's a group of you all that wanted this opportunity that came in January, and things are different, like the landscape's different. How's it going?
Honestly, I like many of us, I've had a sort of a tumultuous start to 2025, just with all the changes and everything, just wrapping my head around that. And it's a tough place to be in a nonprofit. However, I will say that this cohort has really been giving me hope and getting me through it. I think the folks who run this program are so unbelievably good at being very intentional about pairing all of us together. And so they very specifically picked people with wildly different political views. That's the whole part of this, is to just challenge us to get in the same room and work on projects from our different perspectives, but to get things done. And every time we come together and meet, and so now I'm halfway through the program. So we've had 3 meetups. I learn something new about somebody every time. I get to talk to somebody new every time and get to know them. And it's just a reminder to me that there are good people in this world doing good work and having their own good personal mission. And I think the other reminder has been that most people are good. Most people are somewhere in the middle and they want some semblance of the same thing, right? We have a lot of the same shared values. And I think there's a very, very small number of people who are on the extremes, but unfortunately are some of the loudest sometimes. And so it's been a really good reminder to me that, okay, this person may have a different political label than I do, but there's so many threads that connect us, and who cares type of thing. So I don't want to brush under the rug like, yeah, no big deal, but it really has done its purpose so far in me, in that I'm really reminded on a regular basis that there's more that binds us together than separates us. And I have solace in that.
Yeah, I think too, the folks that are the curators of these types of programs have to understand that we don't know what's going to happen from one day to another, despite any elections or what's happening. And it is really cool when they can put put groups together that can learn something from each other and also learn something about themselves. What's something that, I know you're like halfway through the program, but is there anything that you've learned about yourself, or that something that stuck out? Putting you on the spot. I gave Kate no pre-questions before this interview. We were all preoccupied. No warning.
You know, one of the things that one of my now friends in the cohort told me very early on is that I guess I just didn't really realize about myself was, he said, you're somebody that I want to talk to. You make me feel like that you're really interested in what I have to say, and you're making this a really safe environment for me to tell you anything. And I felt like that was such an amazing compliment. And I never really thought twice about that, about making people feel heard and feel special and listened to. But I think that's something that I really want to hold on to and make sure that I never lose, because I think it's such an important part of getting this work done. In addition to meeting with my patients and helping them through things, those pieces. And so I appreciate that compliment for him to point that out, because it wasn't something that I ever have really thought about. But I think as a leader in particular, it's such an important quality. And so I really hope that's something that I can hang on to forever and continue to take with me and make good change.
I think that you are going to be able to hold on to that forever. For sure. I mentioned on a podcast, I think it was the one that I just recorded, that you can be in a conversation and you can be curious and listen and want to understand where somebody's coming from, or you can be in a conversation and want to be right. And I feel like right now is a time to, whether you have the skills or not, to step back and listen and be curious and ask questions, not like, why do you think that? But like, what brought you to that conclusion?
Right.
What's going on in your life that this is something that you agree with? Just curious how you got to this point.
Sure.
And also, I will say, as a non-practitioner, but doctor goer tour, what am I? I'm a patient. I don't know.
Patient? Sure.
A patient. I guess I could use like normal language. Yeah, a consumer of healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
It is nice to sit across the table or across the chair or whatever with a health practitioner that does want to listen and does understand that there's a human that's having these experiences and struggling with things and also celebrating and enjoying things. There's a whole thing to somebody like you mentioned. If somebody's struggling with addiction, they may have a part of their life that's going really well. And maybe they're coming to see you because that addiction piece is just holding them back a little bit from actually being as excellent as they possibly can. So I just reflect that. I think that whoever that gentleman was absolutely correct. And I could see how you could carry that into your practice and how lucky your patients and the people that you supervise. You mentioned that you're in a leadership position, and, culture drizzles down from leadership. So you can inspire, impact other folks too.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. Kate's going to save the world, folks. No, just kidding.
We all are.
Yes, we all are. So what else should we know? Or what else should I know? No, I'm just kidding. What else should we know about the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program? And when you're all finished, what does that mean? How many cohorts have gone through?
Yeah, great question. So this is the 10th class. So after we finish, I will be one of about 600 alumni. And so I imagine that experience to be similar to sort of the AmeriCorps alumni network and even just this podcast. We have something that links us together forever. And it's just a community of folks who are doing good work. So I'm looking forward to that piece. I think the other cool thing that I'll say is that I now have gotten to meet both President Bush as well as President Clinton and Secretary Clinton. And I was able to tell President Clinton, thank you for AmeriCorps. And this was before everything happened last week. But that was a big moment for me as a proud AmeriCorps alum. So I thanked him. He thanked me for my service. And that was like a really cool fangirl moment to get to meet the man who founded AmeriCorps in the first place. So that was kind of fun.
And you said Bush too? Bush,
Yeah.
no, Bush
Junior.
Junior.
Yeah. W.
Yes. That's so cool. That is very cool. So I have a mission for you. You said 600 alumni. So your mission is to find AmeriCorps alums within that 600 cohort.
I'm the only one so far in my current cohort. I'm sure there's others, but yes, I will absolutely find them and bring them to you.
Bring them to the podcast. But I think it's important, especially now. It's great because we're getting so many stories from alumni and from all different perspectives and industries and roles. And this is a pretty prestigious program, obviously. And it would be very cool if we had other AmeriCorps members that did go through the program that we can connect with. But what's so cool is we already have one, and she's been on the podcast twice. So, well, congratulations. Number one, congratulations for getting in the program and for landing your dream job and really following your purpose and just following those synchronicities when things just, I do tarot cards, and my thing about tarot, I know you can do all of these card draws and put them in certain things. And I just shuffle the deck until a card pops out. And I will tell you every single time, it's like, okay, yeah, I see that. I see how I need to be paying attention to that. And that's just kind of how the world is, right? Like, if we pay attention, we start moving in a path that fulfills us for some reason. Doesn't mean it's easy.
No.
Like this way of living, the way of living through purpose and passion and compassion and empathy is not easy, but I feel like it makes us a better human.
Absolutely. And it's the right thing to do. And it's okay to get tired and to need to take care of yourself and take a break. But I think it's also important to get back up. And even if you're just taking tiny baby steps forward. I have a colleague at work who always says baby steps are still steps. And I think wherever you are, whatever's going on, if you're one of the NCCC members who were affected, I think, first of all, reaching out to your network and trying to stay active, I think is super important, but also remembering that even just one tiny step every day is still progress, and it's something to be celebrated. And it doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing. We're in it for the long haul.
And NCCC members out there, like these are just two AmeriCorps alum. Kate has more experience than NCCC than I do. We're thinking about you. You're in our thoughts. We want the best for you, whether that means that you can go back to service or you can try something else within your state. There's a lot of state corps programs that are not AmeriCorps. Not that I'm promoting non-AmeriCorps stuff, but there are other service opportunities out there that can help you close that chapter if you were pulled back from your service. So, Kate, as we wrap up and land the plane, any last thoughts about AmeriCorps, what you're currently up to? Is there anything that do you have a book that you published? I don't know. I feel like that's coming next.
There is an author named Kate Morton, but it's not me. I cannot take any credit for that. So no, I have not written any books. I'd love to write a book someday, but not yet. No, just thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy chatting with you. And I would say any of y'all out there, if there's anything that I can do to help you, or if you have any questions about the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program, I'm more than happy to chat, because again, we're all this big network together and supporting each other. And please reach out during this time if there's yeah, if there's anything I could do.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming back, Kate, without any prep questions. You did great. And for everybody that's still listening, just, stay true to yourself and find your purpose, follow your passion, and just continue to get things done. Thank you so much. We'll see y'all later.